We will begin our public hearings in just a moment. We first have one item of housekeeping business to take care of, namely action on the minutes of our previous meeting. Is there a motion for approval of our minutes from the April 4th meeting?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Our minutes are approved, and we are in a position to begin our public hearings for this evening. For those of you who may not be familiar with our process, we ask that as each application is announced by a member of the staff, that you come to the podium in the front of the room, provide your name and address for the record, and then a brief summary of the application involved. Following questions from the commission members, we will invite members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the application to come forward to do so, providing name and address, and then we will similarly extend an invitation to members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to the application. And where comments are made in opposition, we will encourage the applicant to return to address the comments made in opposition. So with that, I think we are prepared to begin, and we'll have our first public hearing, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission members. Mr. Kulik, the first public hearing is SP 2202. This is a continuation from March 14th of 2022. This is a special permit for a parking lot at 604 to 612, 616, and 618 to 632 Montgomery Street, and 249 to 255 East Adams Street. Syracuse Parking Associates, LLC is the owner and applicant, and this lies within a central business district, office and service restricted zoning district. The commission had asked the applicant to revise their plans to include a different style of fencing and some landscaping based upon DPW and engineering comments.
Is this the one? Okay. My name is Steve Etoll, E-T-O-L-L. I'm an attorney with Hancock Estabrook, 1800 Equitable Tower, Suite 1800, Syracuse, New York, 13202.
I'm Martin McDermott. I'm a representative for the property owner Syracuse Parking Associates, LLC, located at 2 Clinton Square, Suite 120, Syracuse, New York, 13203.
As was just stated, this is an application to erect a fence for security and safety concerns around a open parking lot. The previous application requested the ability to erect 966 feet of 6-foot galvanized silver chain link fence. There were also some other comments that were made in the application review, namely there's a right-of-way marker at the corner of Harrison Place and East Adams Street. We've revised the application to erect a fence around the right-of-way marker, so that should no longer be a concern. But most importantly, the fence itself, the height has been reduced from 6 feet to 5 feet. The material is no longer going to be chain link. It'll be black aluminum steel picket type fence, which I think creates a much better aesthetic, and it's consistent, I think, with a lot of fences that you see erected around the city at this time. So we got a new fence for you.
Anything else? That's a summary of where the application stands now, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Let's pause and see if there are any questions or clarifications needed from the commission members.
Is there a site plan that includes the current layout of the parking stalls and the drive lanes? I didn't see that in the packet. And my concern is that one of the comments that we discussed, or one of the issues we discussed last time, but also that the city transportation planner was interested in was some kind of landscaping, and you all said that there wasn't any room, but there's no scaled site plan that I could find that would point that out.
I think in the original application, there was actually an aerial of the building.
Right, I'm looking for a scaled site plan.
So yeah, the plan is only the lots without
site plan.
No, it does not show the current layout on the site plan. That shows the fence. That's just a partial. We don't have one that shows that current, but the aerial is
So-
the best one.
So in determining that you didn't have room to do the landscaping that was being recommended, how did you come to that conclusion?
So the parking spaces are, as it currently lays out, go to the property line, and you're parked, in most cases, perpendicular to the property line, and then they are lined accordingly, and they are efficiently laid out to remove any space from the three different sides that are fenced. You're going to reduce the area and then push everything closer, and then you're going to then infringe upon the drive lanes, the turnaround radiuses, and the number, and therefore you'd have to reduce the number of spaces.
I understand that. I guess I wanted to assess that myself, and I didn't have a site plan to look at that. So that made it difficult. Because if you look at the aerial photograph, it's essentially like all asphalt, then a public sidewalk, then the street. So it's hard to tell where's the property line end.
Property line is, yeah.
Unfortunately, we often see quite a few instances where people park across the property line.
Right.
So regardless of what's paved and how it's striped, it's hard to assess whether or not there really is no room at all on all four sides of this lot or on one side. So I was just hoping that there was a scaled site plan with all the demarcations on it.
I don't remember that being requested, but in terms of assessing the need for landscaping, maybe we should talk for a second about what is around this parking lot, which on one side there is a parking garage, and on the other side there is the back of the Piro Convention Center, basically the receiving area for deliveries. So, and then on the front of it, it's East Adams Street, which is obviously heavily trafficked and a pass-through. So, in my mind, no one is sitting there all day long looking at this landscaping. It's basically, it's very transient what goes on around it. So maybe one other thing I should have said at the beginning of this, though, is that when we moved and changed the design of the fence, the cost of the fence went up 3 times. And the original, just the chain link fence was $36,000. So now we're talking a fence that's over $100,000. So to ask us to put a fence up that costs 6 figures and then also take away parking spaces, which will result in a less economic return on the parking lot, I don't know how that works.
Well, I understand that, and hence why I wanted to see a scaled site plan. If you were to lose 5 parking spaces or 50, there would be a difference in how that would impact, the economics of how the lot operates. But without that, it was just hard to make that determination.
Yeah.
And again, in trying to think of a solution that gets to your end, but also deals with city planning concerns, if even one side of the lot, perhaps where there's the most pedestrian traffic, that might be a compromise solution, if you will. But I couldn't tell that without a site plan. So that was why I was asking for it. I'm all set.
Thank you, but I'll just add on to that line of thinking a little bit. If not all 4 sides with landscaping, and we understand the constraints there, the challenges, certainly one side in my mind has kind of priority status in terms of landscaping, and that would be the Adams Street side. And while no one is sitting there looking at it all day long, I grant that's the case today, but before very long, our community, I think, is going to embark on a $100 million project to renovate the old Central Tech School into a STEAM school. So not too far down the road, the importance of landscaping, at least on that side, all of a sudden becomes highly elevated, I think, in light of those investments and what that facility is intended to accomplish. So just to echo what my colleague is saying about a closer look at landscaping where it might be most important and make the biggest impact on the project. So enough of that for me.
And I appreciate that observation, and maybe kind of scaling back the thought of putting landscaping everywhere as opposed to on that one side, if I'm understanding your suggestion. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and it's along those lines, I was going to just follow up. It's hard to tell, for example, are the driving lanes the maximum that people design for? Are they the minimum? There's all kinds of wiggle room in terms of the standards when one designs a parking lot, and not knowing what the dimensions are, it was hard to say, oh, look, you really could squeak in maybe something along Adams Street, which was exactly what my thought was. So, and I agree with what you said in terms of what's across the street on Montgomery Street.
Good.
But I just couldn't tell that without a drawing, so that was where I was going.
Maybe to help clarify, there wasn't, in one of the generations of this plan, there was a drawing. I'm just wondering if maybe staff had a drawing we could access tonight if,
F1, with all the parking stalls and everything on it? No.
That's only a partial.
Yeah, and it's an old survey. I can't say that that's current. I think you're referring to, there's also a copy of a survey of the property.
I was thinking there was an
Yep.
I was wondering if like 300 parking spots. And I thought maybe in your first session with us, we had something close
Yeah,
to
I
that.
don't remember that.
I remember talking about 300 spots. Like I said, I thought there was some.
I don't remember. And I looked in this packet and I just,
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we would have seen. Provided them.
All right, well, whoops.
but thank you for changing the fence. That's a big improvement.
Okay.
It's a huge improvement.
That's a huge change, yes, a huge change. Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation, for the changes that you presented tonight. We'll open this up for additional comments. Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward, provide your name and address and comments. Okay, it doesn't look as though we have any additional speakers on this particular application. We will close this public hearing and entertain a motion for action on the application.
I would move approval of the application on the condition that the applicant work with staff to attempt to introduce landscaping at least along Adams Street, and noting again the improvements in the fence design.
Discussion on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The application is approved. Condition noted, SP-22-02. And we'll move to our next hearing. Our next, I believe we will hear the next two applications concurrently. They are related projects, and when it comes time for action, we will act upon each of these two separately.
Yes, the next two public hearings are companion pieces. The first is a re-subdivision, R2211. This is to combine three properties into one new lot at 302 to 314, 318 and 320 Euclid Avenue. William Osikowski is the owner and applicant, and the properties lie within a residential Class B zoning district. The companion project site review case is for demolition, new construction, and site alterations at 302, 314, 318, and 320 Euclid Avenue. William Osikowski is the owner and applicant. Properties lies within a residential Class B zoning district, and that number is PR 2202.
Okay, thank you. We're set to begin.
Good evening. My name is Jared McCormick. I'm the project architect with Janney Manning Architects, PLLC, at 225 Wilkinson Street in Syracuse, New York. Here to present 300 Euclid Ave. The 300 Euclid Ave project consists of the combination of three existing parcels along the south side of the 300 block of Euclid Ave, extending from Ostrom to the west and Livingston to the east. The existing structures at 318, 320 Euclid are scheduled to be demolished and make way for the new addition to 302, 314. The existing two-story brick and masonry addition including the connecting stairway to the east side of 302, would also be selectively demolished. The new addition to 302-314 begins on the east side of 302 structure and extends to the western side of Livingston Avenue limit. The new 3-story addition is generally made up of 3 building blocks, each of which are 64 by 72 feet wide, with a smaller block on the eastern end of the corner of Livingston and Euclid. Each of these building blocks are connected by an interior exit stair and a connecting corridor that bisects each of the blocks and connects the building overall from east to west. The project also involves renovations and additions to the existing 302 structure, which include a 3-story addition to the south, an additional full 3rd-story new roof structure, and enclosure of the existing 2nd-story portico on the Euclid Ave facade. The proposed building is overall clad with brick veneer at the ground level, fiber cement, siding, and combinations of clapboards, shakes, panel, and batten detailing. Windows are arranged in various groupings and proposed double hung with a black finish. The primary building entrances on Euclid and proposed between structures, 302 structure and the first new building block to the east, and the secondary entrance on the east and facing Livingston and west facing Ostrom. All 3 entrances are generally in the same location that they currently exist at 300 Euclid and 320 Euclid. Proposed site improvements include new sidewalks, landscaping, off-street parking. There are a total of 38 parking spaces proposed, 2 which would be accessible. Additional on-site improvements include new stormwater and other improvements to the general area. In summary, the project consists of constructing a new 3-story, 15,000 square foot building containing 38 apartment units with 38 off-street parking spaces within an existing residential B district. The proposed area, heights, density, and parking are all within the allowable limits of the zoning ordinance regulations.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the applicant on either project? Either application?
Not right now.
Good, okay. All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation. And we'll ask, are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application, either of these applications, the re-subdivision application or the project site review? Either application, please come forward.
In favor.
Provide your name.
Sure.
Thank you, and address and summary of your comments, please.
Rex Jardine, Giardine. You have my written comments in front of you. Somewhat ambivalent on this. I'd like to provide some pros and cons. Thank you for the opportunity to address. I've lived in zip code 13210 since 1987, and have driven or walked by the subject properties on an almost daily basis. I've carefully looked at the application. It should not be a surprise that Mr. Oshakowski has strategically acquired 3 properties in a row in the 300 block of Euclid, a veritable monopoly. He is clearly a forward-thinking businessman. While I may not share the opinions of many here strongly opposed, it appears most of the requirements for RB zoning are met: setbacks, parking counts, square foot areas. His architect has done his work. Unfortunate that 50 parking spaces get reduced to 38, and there are only 24 units now, so they have twice as many parking spaces as units. It does allow him to maximize the rentable area, and it looks like this development has nearly 100 beds. I guess those that can't fit in the 38 space lot will park along Euclid. I don't really care for the scale of the proposed development, see my last page, but I feel even less about the tenement look of the existing 7-unit Inn Lodge that has evolved at the northeast corner. The steep pitch shingle roof proposed on light trusses, smart, and no doubt the least expensive way to build. Mr. O controls 272 feet of prime frontage. Maybe in some form what is proposed is the right thing. I'm glad I'm not the owner of any single family property to the south. He owns many of those too. The Planning Commission may get a similar wake-up call on an entirely different scale when the nearby not-for-profit, who owns the western side of Ostrom, proposes building something along their 1,018-foot frontage they control. The commission gave them planned institutional district status. That entity can afford better construction materials, elevators, as many stories as they want, flat roofs, world-class architects if needed, and world-class lawyers too. I'm eager to see that proposal and fear the properties on the east side south of the Rose Garden may never witness a sunset again. While the local elected don't want to acknowledge it, the 13210 neighborhood is changing before our eyes with 4,300 new luxury apartments targeting those enrolled at 4 colleges that share one hill, all constructed in a decade, many fueled by lucrative tax breaks, New York State 485A, or under the umbrella of renovation. The tenants targeted have traditionally occupied 1- and 2-family homes, inns, lodges, apartments, and tenements in zip code 13210. The tenant vacuum, no elected seems to acknowledge, does not appear to be taking the neighborhood in a favorable direction. Let's suffice to say I hear more first responders than in any prior decade, as smaller traditional landlords must consider lowering their standards or their rents or both. Absolutely nothing is more lucrative than being a landlord to students adjacent to a top-tier university. One of Mr. O's more vocal neighborhood peers was quoted at a meeting boasting he makes more money than he can count. What is being proposed is not too far from what Rezone was trying to achieve, to energize the Euclid corridor. My letter to Rezone flagged exactly the what about a frontage monopoly situation we're facing here. These 97 beds or so are well located and will bring top dollar. Fresh new development catering to students will generate $1 million a year in revenue. The approval decision is yours. Rezone thinking might have even further encouraged or allowed a business to be operated along the ground floor. Something like this might have then allowed an oligarch to get a 485 tax exemption too. To many, this is just a monopoly board we live on. Control all of the properties in a row in a particular color and your profits multiply. I imagine once this is approved, Mr. O, if not eligible for a 485 exemption, may be looking for any tax breaks for renovating what is now a fairly handsome brick structure at the corner of Euclid and Ostrom. While called a renovation, what is there will simply be obliterated by the massive scale of the new uniform thin veneer the development in this portion of the block brings. Don't let anyone convince you that they need tax exemptions for their business model or to make student housing investment affordable. It just makes it far more lucrative. Mr. O will probably choose the wheelbarrow game piece in this monopoly game to lug all the cash to the bank. He's very savvy. Keep in mind, University Hill generates the second highest tax revenue per acre anywhere in the county, including Skaneateles Lakefront, with billions invested in institutional construction, coupled with hundreds of millions in luxury apartments. Personally, I'd prefer to see a new state-of-the-art public school being constructed before the next luxury apartment, a school for the families who could and should actually live in zip code 13210. Sadly, our 53rd mayor only listened to those who lobbied for nostalgia over inspiring or even adequate. The decision is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? Or, as the previous speaker just noted, speak from an ambivalent perspective? Please come forward if so. I see no one rising to reach the podium, so then I will ask, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward, and likewise provide your name and address for the record and a summary of your comments. Thank you.
Heather.
Good evening. My name is Heather Schroeder, and I'm the president of the Yes. I'm the president of the University Neighborhood Preservation Association, and while you only see me standing at this podium tonight, I am joined by 131 of my neighbors who have signed on and joined me in the letter I'm about to read to you tonight. Dear members of the Planning Commission, The proposal to combine 3 lots on Euclid Avenue, demolish the existing structures, and build a new 4-story block-long residential building poses a timely and important question. What is the community's vision for the university neighborhood? Over the past decade, we've witnessed new styles of development driven by private entities, Syracuse University, purpose-built student housing companies, and local landlords. The city has been in a reactionary position rather than a proactive one. Instead of leading a vision for how new development might shape this anchor neighborhood in Syracuse, the city has been forced to respond to ad hoc proposals, one at a time, each one incrementally shifting the fabric of our built environment. We've been waiting for updated zoning rules through the Rezone Initiative for 5+ years. During that time, we've seen the development of nearly 3,000 new student housing units stretching from East Genesee Street to Brighton Ave. Several of these structures replaced empty lots and commercial buildings, bringing new residents and life to that segment of the city. Euclid Avenue is different. It is and has been the connection between the universities and the residential area of the university neighborhood. The architectural interest of Euclid Avenue is integral to our city's history and contributes to the residential feeling of our community. The pace and variety of development in the areas surrounding University Hill begs the question, what do we all want this neighborhood to be? What is our community's vision for the university neighborhood? The mission of the University Neighborhood Preservation Association is to promote homeownership in the areas surrounding Syracuse University, Upstate Medical University, and the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry. We provide grants to new homeowners to customize and improve their homes, and we coordinate low-interest loans for existing homeowners who seek to invest in and stabilize their houses. For UNPA, we're being asked new questions. Can I invest in my property with confidence for how and where new development will be permitted? Should I take out a loan to put a new roof on my house without knowing whether a 4-story building may be allowed next door? Where does the purpose-built student housing end? And what will happen to the houses the students used to rent? Before the Planning Commission grants new requests for recombined lots, for demolition of century-old structures, for new construction of unprecedented height and scale for the surrounding area, we implore you to pause. Pause and plan. Pause to allow the community, in collaboration with the city, to put forth a comprehensive plan for what we want this neighborhood to be. A neighborhood that has always been home to students, faculty, staff, and fans of learning, preservation, and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jeff, do you have a copy of the letter? Thank you. Are there other individuals who would like to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come to the podium.
Hi, my name is Sam Gruber. I live at 123 Clark Street in Syracuse, in the zip code so noted. I'm speaking as a private individual, but I am president of the Arts and Crafts Society of Central New York. I'm also co-president of the Westcott Neighborhood Association. And though neither of those bodies have taken a position on this issue, I think the sense of the membership is probably consistent with what I'm going to say. I agree wholeheartedly with Heather's letter, so I don't want to repeat any of the points she made. I just want to make a few historical points about the origins of the neighborhood and then some of its more recent history, and I think that these are relevant to the decision today. As many of you probably know, long before your tenures, but it still continues today, there's a popular expression of this body that it's more the lack of planning commission than the planning commission. I know that you are reactive. You respond to proposals put before it. But this is an opportunity, as Heather suggested, for some real planning that can impact the future of the neighborhood and the future of the city. If there is no planning, that will also have a huge impact because the die will be cast and we can see, to mix metaphors, perhaps a domino effect, mixed games, a domino effect, as other properties are consolidated and there's more demolition, more big building, not just down Euclid, but I fear for Ostrom and Livingston, and eventually, depending on the size of the university and the amount of income from these projects, rolling further east. Now, this neighborhood, when it was created at the turn of the 20th century, was an ideal streetcar suburb. And originally, it began 2 blocks further east at College Place and then at Comstock. But in the 1980s, the university demolished a lot of buildings there, and the border shifted to Comstock and really to Ostrom. So we're at the gateway from the university to the historic University Westcott neighborhood, and what happens here will have great effect. The building that is the Handsome building on the corner of Ostrom and Euclid was built as a fraternity in 1911, and it's still virtually intact. It's a very nice colonial structure. Subsequently, it was the Zeta Beta Tau fraternity, which is sort of a landmark in Syracuse's Jewish history. Louis Marshall was involved with that fraternity. So there is some historical significance to the site as well. But urbanistically, it's important that the streetcar suburb, as it developed along Euclid Avenue, where the trolley ran, it was defined not so much by the distinctiveness of individual buildings, but by the consistency of the massing of those buildings, the density of the area, the amount of green space, and the presentation to the street. To change that drastically now with this larger project will potentially change the nature of the entire neighborhood, and things will move quickly. When I moved to Syracuse in the early 90s, the university had gotten from the city, from the Planning Commission, the designation of a institutional district, a planned institutional district. And the emphasis was it was going to be to the north, only to the north. We know now that the promise that the university made at that time not to build east of Comstock is now probably going to be broken because they demolished the 5 houses on Ostrom with, I believe, permission from the commission, but we can now see new university development going east as well. But the development for the institutional district, which was going to have schools, hospitals, clinics, religious institutions, dormitories, charitable organizations, and I think I'm quoting from the legislation, that was meant to be north and not to the east. Now, that was the university's promise. Individual private property owners didn't make any such promise, but no one foresaw at the time the consolidation of so many properties by so few individuals that's taken place since about 1990 to respond to the university's expanding enrollment. And now we come to a point where the individual owners are potentially going to do what the university said they weren't going to do. And I think we have to face those consequences. So the history of the neighborhood suggests we keep a lower density, a more somewhat open plan. There can be changes, certainly, because each individual building is not necessarily sacrosanct, but the feel of the neighborhood is important. And then the more recent history suggests that the city collectively and the university, as part of that, made a decision 30 years ago to do just that, to keep the neighborhood and not to build bigger, not better, just bigger going forward. So those are some things I want you to think about as you make your decision. It is true the project probably does meet the standards of the present day zoning, which creates a quandary because you have to confront the letter perhaps of the law, what's allowed, but also the impact of that law, what it's going to do for the next generation of residents of the east side of Syracuse. So thanks for your attention. And I will.
Thank you. Are there other individuals who wish to speak in opposition to either of the two applications under consideration now?
My name's Miranda Hine. I live at 301 Clarendon Street, 13210, and I've lived there for over 40 years. I didn't make copies. I didn't think to do that, but I'll give you this when I'm done. Sorry, but I did email it, but I'll give it to you. So this is a letter that I co-wrote with my neighbor, George Curry, who has lived in the neighborhood longer than me, probably 50 plus. And it was signed by all our immediate neighbors, not all, but probably 80% of our neighbors on 700 block of Ackerman, 300, 400 Clarendon, and 700 Sumner. And then my son, who's very savvy technologically, said, "Mom, put that up on change.org." And I said, "How do you do that?" And I did it, and within 48 hours, there's 152 signatures, and I have those names and addresses here supporting the letter. So I'd like to read it to you, and then you can look at the names and the people, and probably if you add all the years that people have lived in these houses, you're talking over 1,000 would be my guess. We're writing as property owners and neighbors of the 300 block of Euclid Ave. We urge the Commission to deny both applications. While there are many concerns with the proposal for the redevelopment of the south side of the 300 block of Euclid, there is a much larger concern that this proposal brings forth. That concern is the future of the entire Euclid Avenue corridor. No single developer's proposal should be set the stage or standard for the future of Euclid Avenue. Based on what criteria can the Commission or the interested public make a recommendation or judgment on these two applications? What is the city's vision for this important corridor? What do the neighbors and the neighborhoods abutting the corridor see as its future? What are the plans for the visual, physical, and environmental character of the corridor? Many issues and exciting proposals need to be considered. The pending state and federal historic district designation recognizes the historic significance of the university neighborhood. The application before you is within the designation area and would hinder its passing. The planned institutional development, passed many years ago, stated that the west side of Ostrom was the demarcation line between the PID and the residential neighborhood where we live. This application falls outside of the PID and violates the residential quality of our neighborhood. Syracuse University's framework plan specifically plans for the 100 block of Euclid and the recently demolished properties on Ostrom. These properties are within the PID. SU plans to build multiple units of student housing or dorms. The recent building of multiple housing units within the PID must surely have satisfied the need for student housing. We are asking the City Planning Commission, in association with the city and county agencies, to develop an urban design plan for the Euclid Avenue corridor with appropriate input from all affected or concerned constituents. And we are requesting a specific response to our request. Thank you.
Very much. Are there other individuals who wish to speak?
If they want it.
My name is Mike Stanton. I'm the president of the Southeast University Neighborhood Association. This proposed project is within that area. And I don't have enough of these for everyone to get one, but I'll describe what these slides look like as we go through. If you go to the first page, and you'll see that it's done double-sided, so you have to take that into account. Syracuse University enrollment. Back in 1989-90, enrollment was about 22,196. You can see in the years 1990, 2000, and up to 2010, the university went through a period where they downsized. They wanted to increase the quality of the instruction and downsize the size of the enrollment. And then the new chancellor had plans to do, that would have required more money. And so enrollment started to come back up. But you can see that where we are in 2020 and 2021, enrollment still is not quite what it was back in 1990. And the university has said they plan to add more students online, but they don't expect to have any more students in Syracuse enrolled at the university. So that's just an indication of the demand. So if you go to the next page, you can see there are 15 large-scale student housing projects that have been completed since 2009. It is just an explosion of new housing. For 40 years, before the building of Ernie Davis Hall, there was no new purpose-built large-scale student housing built on the Hill for 40 years, almost 40 years. And now in this period, we have 4,434 new beds built in this time. And we have 3 new projects approved, not completed yet. Wellington Place, the foundation's already been poured and they're working on it. The other 2 haven't broken ground yet. But when you add all these that have been approved, you get up to 5,269 beds that weren't there before, and it's not because enrollment is going up. And this, of course, does not include the Temple Concord project, which they're now doing an environmental impact statement for, has not yet been approved, but that would have about 600 beds, another huge project. So the student market is in great flux right now. So many students moving to these new developments. And everything is reshuffling. But if you look to the next page, the price per bedroom by distance from campus, you see how that affects this reshuffling. The data that you see here is based on a database of more than 100 student rentals that we pulled together off the internet. It is only single-family homes, and just giving you some caveats. And it does include the quite a few properties say, if you want to know the price for this, you have to call us. So those aren't here either. But you can see on average, about half a block from, and we used Hendricks Chapel as the measure because that's the center, roughly the center of campus, so we're not so much worried about the edge. At about 0.5 miles from Hendricks Chapel, rooms go for an average about $650. We've seen them go for anywhere up to $850, $900 per bedroom for a house. If you go out about a mile, think of 0.5 as Ostrom. That's about a half a mile from the center of campus. Go out about a mile, let's say Maryland, then the price goes down to on average about $550 per room. And then if you go all the way out to 1.5 miles, maybe say Westmoreland, then the price goes down on average to about $450 per room. So as things reshuffle, we're actually seeing more houses near campus going to become student rentals, while we're seeing some houses further from campus, like in Allen Street and in Buckingham, that had been student rentals and have recently been bought by young couples. So this proposed, if you go to the next one, the one that says the proposed building site is just 1 block from campus, this would be a highly successful project. It's just 1 block from one of the main entrances to the university. And I'm sure it'd be very profitable for the person who would build this if it were allowed to be built. But the question has been asked a couple of times, what does the city plan for the neighborhood east of campus? If you go to that slide, and we have at least a partial answer to that now. If you look at the current draft of Rezone Syracuse, the draft of the rezoning for the whole city, the first one in since the 1970s, you'll see that the University Neighborhood Special District is no longer there. The city and the county had planned to do away with that district. They thought it was no longer needed. They're going to take it away. It's just been decided that the city is going to keep, that the county and their planning, they will keep the University Neighborhood Special District in place. And in fact, they're considering adding another special district around Lemoyne for the same reason, to have a better control over student housing in those areas, and in an attempt to keep permanent residents and homeowners in the area. And perhaps, dare we hope, increase the number of homeowners and permanent residents there. So if you go to the next page, there's a big map. And I apologize, you'll have to put the bottom of the sheet to your left. And this is a map of the University Neighborhood Special District. It was established back in 1991 to help to preserve homeownership and permanent residency in the neighborhood. And it's not yet been decided whether the boundaries of this will change or not. We've seen in the last couple decades a big movement of students from further out to closer to campus, because as I was saying earlier, students will pay more for a residence that's closer to campus, and that's why more properties are being developed and bought there. Going on to the next slide. The special district will still be there. This is where we're trying to preserve homeownership. If you look at the map, see the dotted white line, you can see that the special neighborhood district is just to the south of this proposed project, and how it would negatively impact on our hopes and plans to keep homeowners in the area and hopefully even increase the number someday. Going on to the next page, these are pictures of 4 large-scale developments that the current applicant has already completed north of campus. They are at 1027 Madison, 106 Comstock, 108 Comstock, and 116 Comstock. There are lots of new housing projects going up in this area. These are done by the current applicant here. SU also says that they're focusing their new development north of campus. They are bringing more students to live in closer to campus, but also they're going to be developing more housing north of campus. So north of campus is the place for this new kind of development, for large-scale student development. If you go to the last page, you'll see how these developments are clustered together here. And in the upper right corner is the 505 on Walnut, one of these very large student housing complexes. And the 3 properties around this are also already done by Mr. O. And this is the area, this is the place for this sort of new development to go, not next to the residential neighborhood that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other individuals who would like to speak in opposition to either of the 2 proposals under consideration? I don't see anyone. Oh, I do see someone.
Question to the chair.
Certainly.
Is there an ambivalent category again, as you mentioned earlier?
Come on up, ambivalent.
That's where I belong. My name is Robert Haley. I live in 137 Buckingham and have lived there, and we're happy to say this year, 50-plus years in our house. We love the neighborhood. I'm also on the Landmark Preservation Board and have been for 26 years. This project came to the Landmark Preservation. I'm speaking as an individual, as a resident tonight, not as a board member. We have already at our board seen the applicant in our discussion phase, which is to review the project, which we saw about a day earlier and had that much time to consider it. And then we gave our immediate response to what the board, Landmark Board, would be concerned with. And I think those notes are, I don't know that those are notes coming to you. They have not presented their project to us formally. We have not taken a position on it. However, there's some basic things that need to be said here. And I would recommend that this is a bit of a unique timing, as you've heard from everybody, transition of our neighborhood, as well as a pending rezone document, which is looking for increased density along Euclid Avenue as a goal, increased density and mixed use, diverse of uses, not just residential, but providing a street like a college street, not like Marshall Street, one slips into that category all too easily, but a residential street like some great colleges that have different kind of services at the first floor of residential buildings. We've mentioned that to the applicant, and I'm not sure what they're dealing with that. I think a couple of basic issues. They have achieved their goal, which was to maximize the number of rooms in this project. There are 38 apartments. There are 102 beds. There are 8, I believe, handicapped students, all of which are grouped into an area. There are no elevators to the second and third floor, So and this is a matter of diversity here. This is a matter of planning issues towards goals as opposed to existing requirements. So that's why I'm bringing this up in the ambivalent category relative to general purposes. The project is big. I think one thing I'd like to speak to is the quality of the design and what one might look to for future buildings as opposed to the buildings that we think we have around us and may have now. I would say this building is less than exciting and certainly not spent its time dealing with the design of the project. Yes, it's a big project. Yes, it's maximized the rooms. And on that point, I would say I counted 53 rooms that have single windows like this that are either 8 or 10 feet away from the opposite single room in this project, in the 2 slits between the projects. So in terms of making quality of place for the residents or for the streetscape, this is pretty weak and not as interesting as one might expect. There is a building down the street from this, and I think it's the Oron Lion House, that is got some contemporary design character, a well-designed project. And it is a residence with some diverse function as it. They might look to this, or we might look to this collectively as a planning commission towards how can this project be made better and not look so pedestrian. I think with that, I would say I would recommend that you table this and not go through this process. Certainly not a final approval. If this was a final approval for the design, I might have more to say. Thank you.
Much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against? Ambivalent?
I do have some correspondence that came in through email that we gave to you. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and I can give these to the applicant since they were given via.
Came directly to the office, the
So
planning
you can
office.
take these as well. With respect to the preservation board, we do have comments. Apparently, there's a potential historic district being considered there, and so that's why the preservation board reviewed them. And I think we just got those, so I will find them and give those to you momentarily. That's what Bob Haley was speaking about earlier.
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers, and indicate as I had at the outset of our hearing session this evening, any application or comments are made in opposition, the applicant has the opportunity to return and address those comments. So if you wish to do so, you have the floor again.
Steve, while we're waiting for the applicant's representative to come up, I wanted to make a couple of points. The first is that I've had a long association with several of the organizations that were represented today and who have offered comments. I was not part of any of the decision-making regarding letters or comments that were submitted. That said, I've also been deeply involved in the rezone effort as a part of the, I think, is it the advisory group? I can't remember exactly what we're called. So I've been looking at the proposals in that document as they relate to Euclid and would like to just comment on Mr. Haley's rendition of what's being proposed for Euclid. And although it indeed is being looked at through rezone, which, by the way, rezone doesn't exist, so it really should not have any bearing on what we're about to do tonight. It is not a document that we are obligated to think about. But just for the record, the proposals related to what might happen along Euclid as a result of rezone really do not look at increasing density. It is categorized, I believe the last time I saw it, as mixed use 1 district. which specifically intends to keep residential buildings as they are now on the same size lots that they are now, but allow a mix of uses in those residential buildings. In fact, some of the most heated discussions regarding that possibility have centered around not allowing for larger lots to be created along Euclid, while at the same time perhaps allowing for a mix of uses. And then the third point I'd like to make, which again relates to Mr. Haley's comments about the design, the first thing that we really should be looking at is whether or not the re-subdivision is appropriate. If we were to say the re-subdivision is appropriate, we could then look at the design of the building. And the proposal of essentially a block-long parcel is completely inconsistent with the traditional lot and block scenario that we have along Euclid. So if one were to start with that as whether or not it's appropriate or not, I think the conversation ends up being a little bit shorter. And then lastly, from a procedural perspective, I don't know what the commission's ability is with regard to tabling something versus acting on it in light of the long-range planning that everyone has suggested take place. I don't know that we have the luxury of tabling something indefinitely for a plan to be considered. And we would have to wait for staff to tell us if that's even a possibility. Thank you.
Sir, the floor is yours again.
Thank you. I could just address a couple of the comments that were made. The first is about tax breaks or tax incentives being sought by the property owner. He intends no tax breaks or no special considerations. He's never considered that for any of his properties that he's developed over 30 years of being in the university area. So, and as far as the size and the scale of this, we actually took that into consideration when looking at kind of that block of Euclid Ave. And if you look at the north side of Euclid Ave and you transpose those 5 buildings that are currently there in that location, it's relative to the scale of the proposed building facade. 5 buildings, the average height is within probably 12 inches of the proposed height versus what's across the street on the northern side. And I think to speak to the reason this project actually started, I believe back in 2018 when we first started considering it, and when Mr. Osikowski first started to look at those properties. He's owned all 3 of those properties since 1997, so this isn't a new venture for him. He didn't acquire this, within recent years to try to move on this proposal. But it started with the hintings of the rezone process. And we actually looked at this project as, okay, what does that potential zone change mean for these current 3 properties? And as rezone kind of stalled and didn't move, and it's still stalled, and as one board member said, that it's really not even considered to be something we refer to. But it sparked this proposal to first try to address how does that impact these properties? How do we build them to their maximum, while also considering what was potentially right down the road as far as a change? When that didn't happen, we reconsidered the direction we went with the project. That's really all I have to address the comments.
Thank you for taking that opportunity. I agree with my fellow commissioner to the left, who indicated we can't certainly table indefinitely any project and hope that some plan will eventually catch up with it. The commission is at liberty to act this evening on either or both of these applications. It's also at liberty to hold these, either close the hearing and hold action. We heard a lot, it's a big project. A lot of comment this evening on these 2 applications. Commission wants to or needs to digest that information. It's at liberty to do that and not act on these applications tonight. So I guess I will defer to my colleagues first on the point of whether these hearings should be closed. If we are in need of additional information to complete the record before making a decision on these applications, we will hold the hearings, or one of them, or both of them, open in order to obtain that information from which we can then make decisions. If the information needed for decision-making is at hand and needs simply to be analyzed and digested before a decision is rendered, we can close the hearing and take the time needed to evaluate that information. And if there's a motion, if the hearings are closed, to act on one or both of these applications this evening, the Commission's at liberty to do that as well. So any immediate thoughts on closing, from the Commission members, on closing these two hearings or keeping them open in search of additional information that would be helpful in making a fair evaluation of these project applications?
Steve, I just want to clarify the Preservation Board's comments. I don't have a printout for you, but I can read them to you.
Please.
They reviewed the project on Thursday, April 21st, and their comments focused on the potential impact the project may have on individual historic resources and on the surrounding Westcott University Neighborhood Historic District, which is currently under consideration at the State Historic Preservation Office. So I believe there's a movement afoot to consider this National Register district. The Preservation Board noted that the building located at 302 to 14 Euclid has individual architectural distinction and anchors the western entrance into the university neighborhood. The board is not in favor of the proposed exterior alterations to the original building, as they would have a significant negative impact on the historic character of the property and on the visual quality of the surrounding district at this important intersection. The buildings at 318 and 320 Euclid Avenue appear to have been altered and are of lesser architectural value, although their height and scale are appropriate to the overall streetscape and pattern of development of the neighborhood. The board noted that the surrounding neighborhood is characterized by individual 2 to 3 story frame and brick residences with front porches and main entrances that face and engage the street at a pedestrian scale. The board determined that the height, scale, and massing of the proposed development and its lack of pedestrian level engagement along Euclid Avenue detracts from and is incompatible with the historic streetscape and neighborhood pattern.
That's from the Preservation Board. Thank you. And otherwise, are we waiting on any other departments? Everyone has weighed in, correct? From the
No,
city?
these comments are just not in the departmental printout that is in your packet that has DPW and engineering's comments as well.
Okay. Okay.
That the applicant does have.
Thoughts on maintaining the hearings open or closing the hearing?
Spoke, and I certainly am pleased, since we're having an open discussion, I recommend holding these, leaving them open, and not acting either one. What I'm hearing is a lot of fine ideas from all sides, including the ambivalent. What no one seems to remember is before COVID, it was a lifetime ago, there was a large proposal that was voted down on the first time through, because it was going to take many, many blocks, and they kept saying it was in scale of 3 sisters of Genesee Street. But in my head, I'm kind of equating how far the residential area that was, and it was, I think, 4 different structures that were going to be demolished. And the building was several stories taller than anyone thought was appropriate. But unlike declaring a moratorium on restaurants and bars, when you're talking about housing, there's still an urgency to have a conversation about it. And maybe all the people in the room talking could talk to each other. I'd love to be reactive, but I think it's better for all. Consider that maybe the proposal of the applicant may want to have a conversation with the groups that are here tonight to see if there's a way that everyone can have a quiet enjoyment of their property and still influence the design appropriately. So I'd like to hold this open, and maybe for our next meeting, we'll have a little more information to go forward.
I suggest if we take that approach, then the applicant should take a hard look at the proposal with regard to the parcel size that's being proposed. To me, that's a fundamental issue to the overall proposal. I mean, the architectural design and all of that is second to creating a large parcel that allows a large building to be placed in a neighborhood where there are no others like that. So perhaps if folks were to talk to one another, the discussion should center around, could this be somehow smaller? And on smaller parcels.
The issue of parcels is consistent, no matter
Right.
what part of the city we're talking about.
And we've been working on that for years now. So I think that's the crux of the issue here, is that the parcel that's being created is so inconsistent that it then allows a development that is inconsistent. If there's some room to have a different size parcel and therefore subsequently different size development, that would be something that might make more people happy than not. But to me, that would have to be fundamental to what we would then consider the next time around if we hold these open.
Hearing from the commission members is a desire to hold both hearings open so that the commission members can digest the information shared this evening, for, against, and in between, and also with the hope, requirement, that the applicant might engage in some conversations with some of those who spoke this evening, or the representatives of the organizations who spoke this evening. So with that, we will hold both hearings open, the project site review, subdivision, return to them in 3 weeks at our next commission meeting in May, and action this evening on either one of these. We'll proceed with the rest of our public hearings scheduled this evening, but no action on these two that we have just been reviewing and discussing. So with that, thank you all to everyone who presented, who spoke. We need to leave so quietly because we do have additional hearings to get through this evening. So with that, Heather, Jeff, can you please move us or introduce our next application for a public hearing tonight?
Yes, the next two public hearings are R2212. This is a re-subdivision to combine two properties into one new lot at 633 and 637 to 639 North Salina Street. SCIREH2 LLC is the owner and applicant. Properties lie within a commercial Class A zoning district. The companion project site review to this is PR 2123. This project is for facade and site alterations at 633 and 637 to 639 North Salina Street. SCIREH2 LLC is the owner, and Sustainable Comfort is the applicant. They would be the applicant on both. Properties lie within a commercial Class A zoning district.
Thank you. And as we just did in the previous two cases, the presentation will involve both applications, the re-subdivision and project site review. They're integrally connected to one another, so it makes sense for the presentation for both to proceed simultaneously. Likewise, when public comments are entertained, they can be on either or both applications. When the time comes for action and when there's a motion, each item will be acted upon independently of the other.
Thank you. My name is Ed Keplinger, Keplinger Freeman Associates, 6320 Fly Road, East Syracuse, New York. I'm here tonight representing Sustainable Comfort. Sustainable Comfort is a green building design consultant headquartered in Worcester, Mass. Their work focuses on energy efficient design and construction. They're looking to improve their upstate New York service. Their New York State team has grown so much over the past few years, and they've outgrown their current location. The properties are located at 633 and 637 to 639 North Salina Street, and were purchased back in 2020 to be their New York State headquarters. They are currently renting office space and are looking forward to moving into their building once it's completed. Again, the two actions are re-subdivision and site plan approval. The re-subdivision consists of combining the 633 North Salina Street parcel and the 637, 639 North Salina Street parcel together. One parcel contains a building and a portion of the parking lot, and the other parcel contains the remaining parking area, so this would make it a complete site. It makes sense. It's pretty straightforward. Site plan approval, for a little background on the building. The existing building is considered historic, and the changes to the building facade have been reviewed and approved by SHPO and the National Park Service already. They've already looked at this site. Also, the project has been reviewed by the Syracuse Landmark Preservation Committee or Commission. Brief overview of the project. There are facade improvements. The improvements consist of repairing existing wood, exterior painting, replacement of windows, doors, and storefront, and new building signage. Site plan improvements include pavement renovations and repairs, upgrading the lighting, upgrading the perimeter fencing, adding curbing and landscape at the parking lot entrance, a dumpster enclosure, and adding a dry well. Any questions?
Are you conferring with the recommendations from the Land Preservation Board in terms of their points made regarding this?
Excuse me?
He's asking if the Preservation Board's comments are reflective in your plans that
Yes,
you
they should,
received.
yes. Yes.
So, just
I-
not to belabor it, but they're specifically recommending that PVC composite paneling only be used as the base panels, and that an alternate material used for the storefront paneling. And then there was a minor recommendation about the logo. So was that change in material made, and is that what the Park Service approved?
I don't know the exact details on that. Do you know, Heather?
Well, it looks like on the drawings that the detail text was changed. I can read it to you. Above where the transom would be, the note does say a painted wood panel, and then a different material starting with A would be, AZAC would be used on the
So
bottom.
they made that change?
Yeah, they did make the change, yeah.
And what about the comments from the city transportation regarding the site development? Back in, a long time ago, in November, he commented that he wanted to see a planting plan, that the rear lot frontage required remediation in terms of overgrowth.
We did the back portion of the property.
Okay.
With all the overgrowth. And
Okay.
have added landscaping.
Okay.
So I can just read the note. It's painted wood paneling detail is pointing to a portion of the transom, and then, period, AZAC or equal shall be used at base and in areas which are in direct contact with rain, salt, and snow, which is what the Preservation Board had recommended. So that note was changed
Sure.
on these plans.
Other questions for the applicant?
All set, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there individuals who wish to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to either application? Please come forward. We get no additional speakers for either application years. I think we're in a position to close both public hearings, so we will do that. Entertain motion on either one or both, but separately.
For R2212, re-subdivision, I would move approval with a negative declaration, noting that the new lot would be consistent with other lots along North Salina Street and also within the North Salina Street Historic District.
Discussion? And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Our re-subdivision application R22-12 is approved. Is there a motion for action on the project site review, PR-21-?
I would move approval with a negative declaration.
Is there a second? Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Project site review is approved as well. Thank you very much, sir. And we continue on with our public hearings, SR 22-02.
Next public hearing is SR 2202. This is a site plan review and for facade and site alterations in the James Street Overlay District at 3020 James Street. This is the American Legion Post 1276 is the owner. Stephen Skinner is the applicant. And the property has a split zoning district with business class A fronting along James Street and residential class A1 fronting along the secondary side street.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Stephen Skinner, 116 Hickok Avenue, 13206. Do you want me to share a little bit about
Just start whenever you're ready. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Well, again, Terry Horst couldn't be here. She is my landscape architect, and I just brought one of the designs with you. And anyway, and my other architect couldn't be here as well. So this project, I'll give you what I can give you on this project. This is currently, this was the Taft School, which is why we called it the Taft. Most people now, I don't think, unless you've been in Eastwood for a long time, and there is many wonderful people that do remember the Taft School, but I think it closed in the 1960s. And then shortly, maybe within 5 to 10 years, it became what we know, the American Legion. And it's on the corner of James and Nichols Avenue. It's quite a tall building. It's a school building. And again, I think there were some schoolhouses, but this is considered the first school in the area. Again, I've driven by it for pretty much all my life. My wife and I own Sacred Melody Bookstore, and obviously we own the Palace Theater, and we own a few other things. But in turn, growing up at Sacred Melody, I'd always see this building. It was part of the parades, and but over the years, I know it has the men and women who keep the American Legion to the best of their ability. It is starting to decay and starting to struggle, and so in turn we have been working very diligently with them now for, it's actually almost 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years to get it to this point where we had to find them another location and then propose renovating another location, which would be just outside the city of Syracuse, the old Friendlies. So that took us 6 months to a year to get that approved. So that is in the waiting for this project to be approved, so then they can move forward. And so it is going to be a delicate process where if this does get approved, then we would also help them renovate, relocate to the new, more sustainable facility for them, so then it could make way for this. And we really looked at every angle of what an old school building could be. And I know many other people have done the whole revitalization to upper end apartments, but in the end, we, after really looking through it all, 29 units would be proposed here. No commercial, even though downstairs currently there's a lounge bar. I'm not going, at least at this time, I'm not pursuing any tax exemptions at all. As much as I would love some tax exemptions, it would help. It would help us out. I couldn't justify doing it because I know what it's like to, when you, even at the Palace Theater, to have cars lining down the street. And the goal was to, by having the parking lot be a parking lot with some beautification, as you can see, that the goal was not to do the same thing where on bingo night, no one has the front of their house. Every car spot for 3 blocks is taken. So the goal by doing this is that there'll be a parking spot for every apartment, and we will not pursue commercial because it really does not, in this case, help the neighborhood. So the 29, again, I would call them, you know, market upscale apartments. It's going to be beautiful, and that's what we're proposing.
The project requires a few waivers, if I'm not mistaken, right?
So I know,
So we had given those to Terry as a representative. We could probably show you the list right here if you want.
Sure.
So you can address those, yeah.
4 of them, I think.
sure, or you can read them off to me and I can let you know.
Yeah, we can do that, and what we'd
Yeah.
like you to do is pause after each one.
Because, yeah.
We ask you just to provide a rationale for the need for the waiver that's indicated in here, so.
Sure, because I thought I answered all her questions on the waivers before, but maybe not.
The first one pertains to section of structural coverage requirement. Regulations indicate that a minimum structural coverage of 50%. The plan illustrates an existing structural coverage of 34.9%. The rationale is kind of self-evident, but we do need to ask the applicant to provide a rationale for the need for that waiver.
And again, if you can help me clarify when it comes to coverage being on the parking versus the building, or what do you mean? Or,
The structure.
The structure itself, vis-à-vis the lot that it sits on.
I mean, so we're not expanding the building in any which way. It's, so, I mean, again, historically, and again, I'm not saying I'm, you know, the best preservationist, but I think if anyone knows me, I'm pretty, yes. Our goal is always to rebuild and restore, hence our Palace Wall, that got finished today. But, to rebuild and restore versus tear down. That's always going to be our, our train of thought. So
with an existing building.
Yes, exactly, and try to use that for the best use. Correct. Absolutely.
And
so we're not expanding or touching anything regarding, except for maybe a couple of the entrances are right now a little bit. I'm just going to be honest, a little bit cob jobbed. They need to be cleaned up where they have nice glass, and so there's like a breezeway. So there might be a little bit of that will be touched, and then if you notice, we are, again, it's up for any discussion or whatever would be best for everyone, but the goal is, I really believe, since we are going to have a nice greenscape out in the front, which I've already signed and said I would do it, whatever bike racks were needed, benches. We are already obviously planning to do all new sidewalks. I'm very big on healthy ornamental lighting, landscape lighting. Obviously, the parking lot's going to be now repaved, drainage, trees, fence, lighting, but I want lighting that not to hinder the neighbors surrounding it. I don't want them to feel like there's glare into their living rooms watching TV at night. But that will be also, that little area that I pointed out will be a little sitting area, because I do believe the residents deserve some type of private sitting area, whether that is to relax in the evening or whether there's some type of little type of grill out there, who knows, but something where privacy to themselves, that the front will be, I'm sure, used obviously for people going by and walking and enjoying the more of the landscape. But anyway, so but it's up to discussion on, I think she has it as like pavers or something. That's fine. I told her whatever works for everyone. But yeah, so those are some of the things we're doing, but not changing the structure of the size of the building.
What's there? The second one is going to sound very familiar to you, but we have to work through these waivers so that any resolution
Sure.
is specifically identifies what's been waived. So
Sure.
the second one relates to parking, and it said accessory parking shall be permitted on a corner lot only if there is at least 50% structural coverage. The site plan illustrates existing accessory parking on a corner lot with structural coverage of 34.9%, which was from the previous
Correct.
waiver. So the commission would need to adopt a waiver from the parking lot requirement. It's under the 50%. Think perhaps you might want to repeat your rationale from the first one, because
No,
it
it's
sure
okay.
seems to
So-
apply
so-
here.
So when it comes to the parking lot, obviously, again, most people don't have to, I'm never going to be that developer that develops something against what the community wishes. So again, I'm always taking into account I own the Skinner Real Estate Company, so we always are taking into account what does our community need. It's not about the money, it's always about what is the best use for a property for what's in the area. So again, I'm always willing to hear more neighbors out, but we liked this building for this project because of the fact that it does have parking, it's already been existing, and all we're gonna do is beautify it. Right now, if you go see it right now, and again, they have done the very best that they have been able to do with the resources they have. It's just a bunch of tarvia right now with a lot of potholes. And it needs new curbing, it needs new fencing, it needs trees, it needs actually not to have a blacktop sidewalk. So there's going to be some things where we're going to be spending some resources on it. And if you notice, even to break it up, we're going to try to between drainage and trees in the middle of the parking lot. The only thing I was very, I guess, strict on with the landscape architect is we still need to make sure people can navigate in and out of a parking lot okay. And we do need to at least have one parking spot per, if we don't have parking enough for one, I don't even know if that's code, but two, the fact, now all of a sudden we're going to be dumping cars onto Nichols, and I know we're trying to keep this residential street a very nice residential street. So we want to have it where it looks clean, dumpster enclosures, seating for everyone, handicap parking, and the couple of things that we had discussed is whether or not do we do, because it's not that big of a parking lot, do you do a single, like you go in a single formation so that you can angle it a little bit? I said that's up for discussion, but I said I need to have 29 spots, and I believe that's what she put on there, but it could be slightly, but that's the reason for it. And without the parking, it defeats the use of the building, and vice versa, and then we're actually only hindering the neighbors, because now people then, the building across the street, and again, the guy the developer about 10, 12 years ago did a nice job with the Barbara Jean, but there's neighbors on the side of James and Rig guy across the street that probably just would like to see the building gone. It's 35 apartments with 8 parking spots. It was a design originally, what I heard, it was when Carrier had a lot of people busing from there in the beginning to down over Thompson. So the point is that it wasn't thought through well on that building. So even though it fell on hard times, it was redeveloped. Same thing, apartments, same 34, 35 units with 8 parking spots. So what does everyone do? Jammed all the way down. Every night it's jammed, not one spot in front of someone's house. So we want to avoid this. This is avoidable here because everyone will have a parking spot.
The third one has to do with the driveway location on James, because the regulations indicate no driveway shall be allowed on James Street. Site plan illustrates an existing driveway on James Street. So that feature of this project would therefore need a waiver as well. I think the key here is it's an existing driveway. Can you comment?
Yeah, I can comment a little bit on that. And again, I only know so much. So, okay, we have what we call the former burned area, which is on the corner of, now it's called Big Mike's, on the corner of James and Midler. Okay, then a building had burned down, whatever, now it's just green space. And then you have a cell phone store. Okay, next to that cell phone store, there's this driveway that borders this American Legion building. I have not. Again, I know we have done plenty of surveys. We've already paid for multiple surveys to be done on the property. I don't know where that line is on that. However, to get to the back of the parking lot where that cell phone store is, which is right near that, pretty close to the old burned area there, to get to the back of that parking lot there, that is they will have to remain that curb cut. Now, when it comes to getting to the back, right now there's a metal gate that's locked that you can't, because they don't want people cutting through there to the back of the Legion. I'm fine personally with that all being fenced in. It's whatever's legally allowed. There's no need, in my opinion, to have anyone come in off of James Street. I'm not looking to have residents zoom through the back of it's pretty small. But if there's other easements involved or any other one else's building, that's a separate story. I don't have control over that, but I know when it comes to this building, if I'm the owner, there's no need to, I don't need to keep, the curb cut's gonna have to remain because it goes with the cell phone store, but I don't need access. It can be fenced off or whatever so that we keep just the entrance and everything from Nichols only, so.
So it's on your property, but the adjacent property has a right-of-way to use that driveway?
I think the line, and
And that's
again,
how
I
I'm
apologize.
reading it.
Yeah, so.
Right.
So there's this building here, driveway. I don't have the survey in front of me, you might have it, it's somewhere.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a legal easement or not, but bottom line is, that they're going to, this is the parking lot here. They're gonna wanna have access to the park.
But there won't be access all the way back to your parking lot?
Currently, right here, there's a fence here.
Okay.
And I'm fine with leaving that fence there. There's no need for anyone, I would actually not prefer it because it's a danger to me and it's a cut through and it would not be, there's just nothing good about it. From my standpoint. So leave it fenced in or something. Yeah. Mhm.
And the final waiver pertains to landscaping versus fence or wall. And it says that under the regulations, a decorative street wall or fence shall be constructed and maintained within the space between the street and the parking area unless the commission accepts a landscaping only alternative. And apparently the site plan illustrates a number of inkberry shrubs between the street and parking area in lieu of a decorative street wall or fence. And so commission needs to kind of weigh the practical difficulties. Can you just comment on that choice that you made in terms of the landscape versus?
Sure. I mean, again, my philosophy has always been less is more as far as when it comes to beauty. Sometimes I think in our attempt to make things beautiful, sometimes we go a little overboard. If the commission says, no, you must have an iron fence or you must have that, I guess we're going to have an iron fence. I'll do what the commission says, but I'm much more into a natural environment. So if we can do through evergreens or through shrubs, again, I have a full-time guy. That's all he does is just mulch and edge all day long. So if we could do something like that, but and provide a natural barrier and keep it maintained, we'd be fine with that. My one minor concern has been with all these different little things from curbing out things and mulching and landscape and fencing, it keeps encroaching more and more. And in the end, the last thing I want is for cars to feel like, Stephen, it's so tight to back in and back out. That's why I even told Terry that if we have to slightly angle the parking and do a single lane where you all pull in one way, you go through and you slide in, because if someone does have a medium-sized pickup truck, I don't want them backing into someone else's vehicle. So less barriers and hindrances I make on things, I think the easier or the better, but I'm going to leave that up to everyone else. If they say you have to have some type of metal fence or picket fence, I'll go with it.
I can't read this 'cause it's too small. Can you just tell me how big the planting area is where the inkberries are? Like, what's the width of that planting area? I was going to get a magnifying glass, but I couldn't find it, so.
I wasn't anticipating that.
Or if, Steve, can you just call it up on your screen and zoom in? since I don't have an iPad anymore.
It's okay. I know.
We're doing the same kind of measurements over here on the screen.
Wise guy.
It just looks like it's wider than the actual, I can't, like I'm blind, I can't see anything.
About 4 to 5 feet.
Okay, thank you. It's not a 3-foot wide planting. It's
Approximately 4 to 5.
okay. My concern is it's wide enough for the shrubs to actually grow. If
Sure.
it's not wide enough, then it's not an effective alternative to some kind of more
I
solid
understand.
screening.
True.
And we've certainly seen Terry Horse work before, so I'm assuming it's accounted for, but I
Sure.
can't read it.
And
So,
yes, and we're very, like I said, we're very attentive to all the landscaping we have, so we don't let anything get out of hand.
Is it lawn? Concrete? No, it can't be concrete. So this is a different symbol. Ah, paper. Like paper. Look at this, I can see it. It's in lawn. Okay, that's all I needed, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions at all, or?
I think so. Thanks for addressing those waiver points.
So basically, this is all lawn. So it's, yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm worried about, so even
I
though she's
will
planting.
wait till
here,
they
there'll be plenty of
finish
room for them to
speaking.
Actually grow and be effective. Thank you.
So Rebecca asked about the Board of Zoning Appeals and the use variance to allow parking in a residential A1 district, and they did approve that on Thursday, the 21st.
So the commission is clear to act. Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. Any additional questions for the applicant?
I have one more. There was a comment somewhere in here, I'm gonna try to find it, I probably won't, but about the doors, I think on the James Street elevation, a couple people made recommendations about doing something to make them look more like operable and inviting doors.
And I told her whatever the commission approves or whatever is more inviting. I'm not a big fan of what they currently look like. They're just big old metal exit doors right now. It should look nicer. We also discussed the fact, and I thought she did some adjusting, but Terry's very good about doing that. I told her that to select very nice ornamental lighting. We don't want the building to look just, it's supposed to have life. It's supposed to be, so it would landscape lighting, outdoor ornamental lighting, the sign, again, keep it simple, keep it gracious. But yes, the building is, hopefully it's going to have a good use, but I said good lighting outside. We want plenty of it.
And I have one last question, and again, I can't read it because it's too small, but on the page with the elevation.
The what on the elevation?
This page with the elevation, it shows the building blue. Are you painting it blue?
No, it's not blue. No.
I just
yeah.
had to ask.
No,
Thank you.
we are going to try the above. It has this beautiful crowning at the top. That's been, I think it was almost like a green or whatever. We may just go with the exact same. I know a lot of times people do accents in black and all that, but I think James Street's already had a lot of people do it. We'll probably do something. Let's try to keep it the exact same of what it was. The brick is nice. The windows are going to be black vinyl, so they'll be very striking, very nice. The only other thing, and I don't know if it's on there or not on the front elevation, is just they did an addition in the center of, I call them between the center of the towers, and there's these, they're like little, I hate to say, I call them prison windows. They're very thin and small. They need to be normal size windows that bring light in, that make it look like the whole building was meant to be at the same time. I said, I think when that's done, there's no need, even though that addition has a different facade brick, I think what happens is when you tie in nice color, you tie in nice windows and landscape, actually everything comes together. And again, going to less is more. I don't think we need to stain or paint or anything like that. I would like to leave as much natural as possible, and then, yes, and then we'll probably do glass block windows for the basement windows and things of that nature, but it should be a very nice looking building.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Just provide your name and address for the record, and then your comments.
Sean Radney, 143 Shoutwell Park, Syracuse, New York, 13206. All I wanted to say is, just as a lifelong resident of Eastwood, I support the Skinner's vision for this project and their plans for Eastwood, and that I just ask that you support this project and future endeavors, because they're doing a lot of good. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the application, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Groff, and I live at 151 Nichols Ave, so I'm directly across from this building. I'm very excited about the potential of having this become something. I did have one concern, and that is in the short environmental assessment, it refers to a remediation had been made, but it didn't say what. And I just want to make sure that it's not something that will be brought up during reconstruction of the parking lot. There was no description of whether it was toxic waste or, so I guess I would like a little more information about that. But the existing parking lot is really an eyesore. We do have challenges. I think it will be a lot of traffic. The 100 block of Nichols Avenue is very limited for parking, and the public library is in that block. So I do want there to be kind of an awareness of what happens in that stretch of road right in front of the building along Nichols Avenue. But I know that we're working with a constrained environment. But overall, I think this is going to be a real positive addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to continue to call for those who wish to speak, and even though that was not a comment in opposition, but for a point of clarification, ask you if you'd return at the end and address that, as well as if there happen to be any comments in opposition. So let me continue. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, come to the podium and share your comments. Okay, we may have exhausted that category. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the project? Please come forward.
Copy good? Yep.
And if you just provide your name and address for the record, and then your comments.
Good evening. My name is Mark Edwards, and I am the executive of the estate of my late mother, Cecilia Edwards. And the estate owns two properties that are perpendicular to this project. And they come off of North or South Midler Ave and intersect about midway to the two parcels, or the two sections, the building and the parking lot. And my request today is that any approvals be tabled. The estate has ordered a survey for our two properties, and the property line in question has a lot of busy activity going on. The handicap parking, the dumpster, the fence, the easement, all that comes to a head right against our properties. And what I want to do is get a survey done so we can reflect on it and see how we can move forward. Even though I'm here speaking against the project at this moment in time, I support the developer's efforts. I agree with others who have said the property needs attention, and this would be a great stabilizing effect for Nichols, James Street, and the properties that the estate owns. But we don't have enough information about how this all comes together against our two lots, and the survey was requested on Wednesday through Paul Ozlewski, who did the survey for the developer, who is the person who knows the properties better than anybody else. All the surveys I have and my late family's records are from the 40s and 50s, and they really don't adequately provide us enough information. So that is my request. We can get into what my concerns may be, but I think that's moot until the survey's done. So that is my request today.
Which properties are you, I'm just trying to figure out which ones they are.
The addresses are 113, 115 South Midler and 117 South Midler. The one is a building that covers pretty much the entire footprint, and its last iteration was a flower shop my sister had, S.J. Edwards Florist. Before that, we manufactured high-speed automated equipment for manufacturing and manufactured automotive parts in that building since the late 50s, early 60s, I'm going to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They're the ones to the west.
Can I just speak just to clarify something?
Yeah.
Are you saying the properties abut right now, the way the properties are used, you believe there's a line where, is anything over the line is my question, or do you think they're right next to each other?
I honestly am not sure exactly how their survey is interacting with our property right now. The easement that Steve mentioned used to serve the back of our building. We used to load and unload brass and aluminum and equipment and things. There are two doors right there on the back of the building, which, if the apartments were improved, would make that end of our building very valuable to the owner. And I think it's in Steve's best interest and my family's best interest to just get the survey done, and then let's talk intelligently about what we have.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there other individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the application? If so, come forward, please. I don't think we have any additional speakers, so Mr. Skinner, do you want to have the opportunity to address that comment made in opposition, but also there was a previous question or request for clarification in terms of the remediation that was referenced in the environmental form.
Yes. As Jennifer stated, and thank you, Jennifer, Nichols, she's 100% right. Nichols can get tight, and so it is important that we use the property wisely, and that's our goal. And I'm grateful and thankful that she appreciates the project. Again, we are going to be very tender and caring for our neighbors there because it's our neighborhood as well. When it comes to what has been done and what will be done, so I'll tell you what we have done so far. Right now, again, our current lender, which is on track, but plenty of hiccups along the way, as everyone knows, between supply chain shortages, construction cost increases, back up to getting things on the docket. It's been quite a struggle. But with that said, what we have done right now, we have had the initial asbestos tested. Nothing, as you've seen, there's none of the big taped up. That hasn't been done yet. But they went through and did their analysis on it. So we've had, and again, I think it's called G to G or whatever it is. It's something, a green, something, whatever. An environmental company came in and did their asbestos testing. And then we had another company, again, there's two different companies. One did lead, did a lead testing. So it's where they go and they test, I don't know if they poke holes or whatever they do. but they charged me enough for it. But nonetheless, I paid for all of that to be done. I did lead and I did asbestos, and I'm trying to think if there, and I did a mold check as well. So they did testing. There is again, this building's old. There's going to be asbestos. So I think right now we are still in talks with Rich and Gardner, maybe the builder. It's not finalized yet. The issue is it's just cost. It's everything shot up over $1 million on the project. So that's why we've been a little bit of a halt trying to work with CPC being the lender. So we are working right now through those. We will get that figured out, but I know Rich and Gardner put in a preliminary budget that you need about $20,000 to pay for asbestos removal. So that will be done, and I'm sure whoever does it will be doing it properly to code and to all safety and environmental standards, and just along with lead as well. So everything, that's all was tested so far. So I don't believe anything has gotten out or done anything damage to anyone, but in turn it will be done properly. It won't be just someone in there ripping things out and doing something that wouldn't be approved. So that's is that helpful, Jennifer, on that? Okay, wonderful. Okay, now, Mr. Edwards, and again, we're, I would say, good friends, we're acquaintances, and we've been able to have some good discussions, healthy discussions. He wouldn't have had more time, so he did his due diligence when he heard about it. We've tried to chat a few different times and couldn't connect in the past. So where his concerns, and again, I support his concerns. I mean, he knows no matter what, I'm going to make sure his family's protected, because that's just the way I am. But I'll show you on here a couple of his concerns and where things fall in. So, all right. So you got his building. I personally believe with the dumpsters, and the dumpsters, I explained, had to pretty much be located here, because you have to think about the dumpster truck. You can't just, if you have cars there. So I have to have a pretty straight shot. So we did a shot here of the enclosure, but here. I believe his building is here, but where things come into concern, he has, they're valid concern, okay? I don't know if there was any, I don't know, again, he believes there could be, but he says until there's a survey done, which is, we've had our survey done, I don't know if it would ever be on his abstract or settled. Did he ever have a right-of-way here, or did he ever have a right-of-way here to when his building was going here, in the back of his building, there is a what do you call, oversized door?
Yeah, it's a small double door, and a small.
It's 4 feet, 5 feet, 5 feet in the back. So if you took a photo here of the building, there is a door here. It's probably 4 feet from the past of your building to the parking lot of about 4 feet, maybe 3-4 feet. So you open this door, that might have been where workers would walk out, and they had just enough to walk around. I don't know if there was something signed ever there for a legal right of way. There could have been. And then, where his building's here, behind the cell phone store here, you go back here, this was, now, again, that's why you can't touch the curb cut here. Mine would be blocked off, it would be blocked off here, but there is these loading doors here. I'm not looking to do any, besides, unless there is an easement. And so the one question we've talked about is right now it's a chain link fence that's just a chain on it. I don't think it looks that great. It's not, I would like something nicer to border it in, but if he does have a right, then that would be up to a discussion. How do we do a nice gate or swinging gate? But his main concern is affecting the value of his family's building. It's a legit concern. So, yeah, so again, but I wouldn't be touching anything along the back of his building here. The one thing that would make a slight difference, even though we talked about dumpsters, I believe the dumpsters don't interfere with his property at all, as far as the door of the back of his building. But if we did do handicap parking, landscape, and all that, that could interfere with that door. As far as besides getting out and walking around, you couldn't bring a loading vehicle up there or something like that. And I said that we could try to be something clever with how we do the handicap parking, maybe make it so that there's some checkered lines. But even then, I would probably only do that based upon if there is something in the survey or the title saying he has to have access to it. So anyway, so those are, I do feel his concerns, I understand where you're coming from, and I support the fact that he, to do some due diligence there. But other than that, I don't think anything else affects it.
Thank you for addressing both those points. Commission's attorney seems to be absent this evening.
The only thing I would say is if there was any legal easement agreements, it would be on your property. It would show on your abstract and it would be filed at the county clerk's office for your property to get to his.
And so far, I
It would
haven't,
show on
yeah.
his property because there's no physical room
Correct.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, on a survey, though, I don't know if it would show something where that cell phone store is. If there's something there cutting it, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen everything, the title work that my attorneys reviewed, hasn't had made any, they would have brought it to me. There is, I think we all are aware or whatever, there is some type, I don't know if it's AT&T or whatever, that was negotiated years ago. There are some cell phone towers on top of this building. I have no control. I have already said that there's no money for them either. That was a whole nother little, I think there was like a type of scandal in the past with the Allegiant, but in the past that they're there and we have to allow them, the contract doesn't come up again and for another like 6, 7, 8 years. It's not too much of a distraction, and I said we would support them staying there, but it doesn't really hurt anything. But that would be, so I am aware of that. I'm just gonna leave that alone.
So can I ask staff a process question?
What's that?
A process question.
Sure.
Without an attorney here, so this could be interesting. If we were, with all due respect to the neighboring property owner, if we were to approve the proposal as it is, and these folks then worked out their situation with property lines, and it turns out that this development has some obligation to the adjacent property owner, so the site plan would have to be altered, then they would simply come back to us for a modification. Yes?
Right. There is an easement agreement here, but it's for the cell phone store access from James Street. I haven't read the whole thing, but it appears to be only for the adjacent property on James.
Well, if you look
And that's what you were talking about, the title search, Steve.
Correct.
And if you look at the image, it kind of zoomed in from Nichols. I mean, I see the doors you're talking about, the doors you're talking about. There's no way to know if there was another easement with this particular property, and without knowing where the property line is, it could be a foot off of this door, or it could be 10 feet off this door. But again, if we were to approve the application in front of us, and then these folks realize that there is an issue with where the property line is and or an easement, then would the applicant not just, if the applicant then had to modify the site development because of that issue, wouldn't they just come back to us for a change?
Yeah, you could just modify the site plan to move something if there was a legal right to get to the back of that building from Nichols through your property. And if a tree or the dumpster or whatever was in the way, then you could come back and just adjust that as a new business item, so long as no other waivers were necessitated as a result.
Again, I don't want to put him on, but Mark, does that satisfy you enough that if you find something there, then we'll have to come back for a modification on it? And then you have, because then you're protected in that regard? Does that satisfy you enough? Because if it's not there, then there's nothing upholding to that, you know.
I just feel that it's smarter to have the facts of the survey as we sort this thing out. And I'm on board with Steve as far as working it out. We showed good faith. I don't have any concerns there. What does a 3-week extension do? It allows me to get information to make a coherent statement to the board.
Then we could hold it open, I guess. We could hold it open. If that doesn't mess up your timeline, I mean.
I don't think No, I don't think it really does. No, and I support Mark's, his desire to get this thing figured out. So I don't think so, because we have so many irons in the fire right now. So, and again, where would it be? Would it just be backlogged another 3 weeks or so?
Right.
16th?
Yep.
I mean, I can't speak for everyone else here, but based on our conversation, it seems like we don't have any issues with what you're proposing. It's just to give this member of the public an opportunity to work with you on whatever these concerns.
I'll
might
be out of town at that next meeting, but I have no problem sending someone in my stead, or having Mark share his findings.
I would think that if the findings do not impact your site design, it might not be necessary for you to be here. It would probably only be if there was some impact and you were presenting a different site plan.
Okay.
Is that fair to
Is that
say?
good?
In which case, Terry might be.
Terry would probably be here. She just couldn't be here this evening. So, yep, that sounds good with me, though.
Okay, well, thanks to both parties for the accommodation. We'll maintain the hearing open. Looking for additional information, be considered, and bring this application to a conclusion when we meet next on May 15th. Thank you all who spoke on this application. Our next hearing, please.
Next public hearing is R2214. This is a re-subdivision to combine 3 properties into one new lot at 113, 115, and 117 Wendell Terrace. Kathy Fernandez is the owner and applicant, and all the properties lie within a residential class A1 zoning district.
Hi there, Catherine Fernandez, 115 Wendell Terrace. This is my husband, Chris. And we would like to combine the 3 lots that are a part of our property into one legal lot.
Do you folks have the both copies of the survey as it was before and the survey now? Okay, great. On the original survey, I don't know if this even argues a valid point, but if you look at the 3 lots, the way that they're separated, the old driveway infringes on the property line, and the porch, which is not illustrated on the building here, which has been existing, to my knowledge, since 1915 when the house was erected, does also interfere with the right side property line, which would be represented as 117 Wendell Terrace. The porch is still there. The driveway on the left side is not. The new driveway, which you'll see on the site plan provided, has been installed under the permit given, along with the garage being flopped to the opposite side for use for entrance. The house itself never had an entrance on the rear of the property, which would be 113. And I believe at the time when the house was built, there weren't many properties in front of it, so Rugby Road would have been the front yard. So the house was actually facing, when you're driving by it, you're looking at the side of the property from the road. But the actual front of the house is facing Rugby Road. So in using the house as it was intended to be used, putting the driveway in the front made a lot more sense to us. You know, as far as where the entrances were to the actual property, there are currently still no rear door entrances on the house, which we'll have to remedy at some point down the road. The other, as you'll see on the site plan, the other proposal here is to install a swimming pool, which, as I was educated on this year, we couldn't do if it was its own standalone lot. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I just
Kate might want to add something.
Well, you know how that goes, married people. I'd just like to add that this property has always been treated as one lot. The tree line that surrounds it, the pine trees, the blue spruces, are probably 50 years old, and they surround 3 sides of down one side of 113, along the back of 113, across on 117 and back up the other side. There's also a wrought iron fence that surrounds the entire property, 13, 15, 17. Also, the size and scale of the house, if those two lots, we would never do this, but some years down the road when another property owner owns the property, if they were to say, well, gee, I'd really like to sell off that one lot and make a few bucks or maybe build another house on it or something, it would be a total disservice to a beautiful historic property. So our concern is as much in protecting the future use and the integrity of this home as it is our fun and enjoyment of being able to have a pool and all those nice things.
Other questions for the applicants? Good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come to the podium. I don't see any additional speakers. We will close this hearing and entertain a motion for action on it.
Move approval of the negative declaration.
Second.
Discussion?
I'd just like to note for the record that lots this size, although they're not typical in the historic district, there are several larger lots and several regularly shaped lots. So I think it's consistent with the patterns in the neighborhood.
And just for the record, the applicants did seek approval of certificate of appropriateness.
Yep.
On one of our preservation board. We appreciate them taking those steps.
Agreed.
Discussion? Comments? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So the re-subdivision R22-14 is approved. We have an additional public hearing this evening. Thank you.
The last public hearing is SP 2207. This is a special permit for a restaurant at 700 to 716 South Geddes Street. 700 Geddes LLC is the owner, and Ishmael Deb is the applicant, and this is Business Class A zoning district.
Good evening. William Pitcher, 124 Fiegel Ave, Syracuse, New York, 13203, the architect for the owner and for the applicant. The property is a very difficult property. It's a corner lot at the intersection of Grand and Geddes. It's a very high traffic neighborhood. The existing building was a gas station, probably built sometime between 1920 and 1950. 6 months ago when I saw the building, the interior had been completely gutted. There was no office, no restrooms. The exterior of the building has plywood patches, has missing metal. The original enamel panel siding is missing in places. So it's been vacant, and the owner decided it's a difficult property to put money into it, to make it into a vanilla box space that somebody could see as being a rentable space, just moving in their equipment and their furnishings. So in the last 6 months, he's put in new floors, new electrical service, new bathroom, handicap bathroom, new heating system. And what we have here mainly on the floor plan, he has managed to attract some new tenants who want to do a fast food takeout business. So basically the proposed work is to add in kitchen equipment and counter space to the interior of it. The majority of the work, though, seems to be on the exterior, on the site. The sidewalk along Grant is totally broken up and is in bad repair. The sidewalk and the streetscape on Geddes is more recent. We have brick pavers along the street, and then we have 5 feet of sidewalk, and then there's about 11 feet of grass to the right-of-way line.
So there's a lot of open space between the proposed parking area and the pedestrian traffic on the sidewalks. On the north side, or the west side of it, on Grand, the parking lot is very close to the sidewalk, and we're proposing planting beds there to keep separation between the vehicles in the parking area and along the sidewalk. But we're proposing a narrower 5-foot wide planting bed rather than the 8-foot planting bed that the zoning requires. And the same kind of thing down on the Geddes side, that the dotted lines that I'm showing on those plans, those are the required setbacks for the planting areas. And we're asking for waivers from those setback requirements in order to maximize the number of off-street parking spaces that would be available on the property. If we're not permitted that waiver, then we're basically down to a loading area for the handicapped and one customer parking space. So we would be going from 4 spaces down to 2 spaces. The comments from the traffic planner about the width of the driveway, that was on the Geddes side. That's been corrected on this drawing to meet the 24-foot. And the other thing I would like to say about not having, if we don't get a waiver for those setback and planting beds, right now the dumpster is tucked away in the corner of the building. And if we don't have pavement to where the dumpster is proposed, then I have to get the dumpster somewhere out in the middle of the parking lot or the front of the building. It's a very tight site. It's an existing building, and we're trying to do best to get as much traffic off of the street by providing the maximum number of spaces. Now, in addition to the interior work that they're proposing, they're also proposing for the exterior to recover the entire building in new metal siding, and that's shown in the elevations. So it would be a big improvement on the visual appearance of that area. And the parking lot, because it was a gas station, it had islands, it had tanks, is in total disrepair and has to be repaved anyway from beginning to end. So it would be all new parking there. And what I've tried to do is to get to the point where we do have everybody within the space and still have a turnaround space so that people are not backing out onto Geddes. So those are the reasons we're asking for the waivers on the setbacks and the planting. And we think that this is going to be a big improvement to the neighborhood. It's no longer a vacant, boarded up building, but it's going to become a fixed up, modern, and a viable business. So that's basically my presentation on the zoning requirements.
Thank you, and thanks for addressing the waiver requests that you went through. Are there questions for the applicant? Good, good. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, come to the podium, please. Write your name, address, and your comments.
Good evening. I'm David Pierce. I live at 125 Harbor Street here in the city on the far west end. For 40 years, I've worked within a few blocks of the location that they plan on making some changes to. I was at the Syracuse Developmental Center, which is 3 blocks away from 1982 to 1998. And I work at 212 South Geddes Street, 3 blocks away from their building for the last 28 years, okay? Every time I drive to that intersection, for as long as I can remember, maybe 30 years, it's been a blight. Thousands of automobiles going to the suburbs, back and forth. When you stop at that light, you look right at that building, and it's an eyesore. So I fully support these people here putting in a restaurant in the building and improving the looks of that corner. And on top of that, because I work down the street, there are a couple of restaurants there. you know, but having Latin food every day is getting a little tired, so I would love to see a new deli put in there, okay? So we can have something a little bit different. But I wholeheartedly approve what they want to do to that location, just to improve the neighborhood, because I've been down in that end of town for so many years, and having a good place to get some food. That's all my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other individuals who wish to speak in favor of the application, please come forward. You answered one question. I wondered how long that place had been vacant, but at least 30 years.
Off the top of my head, 30 years. It's been so long. I'm kind of old. I'm in my 60s, but I can't remember the last time anybody was in there. It was at least since in the 1980s.
Rich Pachowski, Executive Director, Syracuse United Neighbors, 1540 South Salina Street, corner Kennedy. That's where our office is located. I have a prepared statement. Syracuse United Neighbors, SUN, a 45-year-old community organization active on the south and near west side neighborhoods. We are here today to support the Syracuse Planning Commission special permit for the, quote, deli on South Getty Street, unquote. For many years, we have paid attention to this property. Junk cars with or without plates would park at this gas pump island along 700 South Getty Street and 100 block of Grand Ave. As far back as 2015 and 2016, Sun filed complaints with the Syracuse police to get them ticketed. We finally were successful in getting the police department to put up concrete blocks isolating this parking area in August of 2019. And we were happy that the city council approved the lien sale in March of 2019. This renovation of the old gas station is a long time coming. I just want to make a comment. I just hope that the dumpster is enclosed. We have a problem property behind it, the old Salvation Army. They don't secure it. It's not enclosed. And there's constant problem of dumping going on over there on the Grand Ave side, and we always have to talk to Jake Dishaw at Code Enforcement and get it cleaned up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other individuals who wish to speak in favor of this application? If so,
Yes, we have the applicant here who will talk about the operation and the menu.
oh, okay, that we kind of assumed they were in favor, but if you want to elaborate on the project, please, please do so.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Ismail Deb. I came here with my partner, Ahmad Abdel. We just wanted to share a couple of ideas to how we're going to turn 700 South Geddes into an upscale deli. We're all familiar with the location. We can all agree to say that it's been an eyesore for the last 30 years. So, you know, we would like to be the ones to finally change that. I grew up in the family business in the city of Syracuse. So did he for our whole lives. Our families have been in the restaurant and convenience business for over 50 years, but we've decided to actually just focus solely on the restaurant side. So with that being said, the menu is going to be the only thing that's going to be available in the store. So we're going to obviously cut the convenience side. We're just basically establishing a deli with walk-in, takeout, and delivery. And with that being said, it's a place where you'll be able to get a Philly cheesesteak or a fresh salad with fruits, vegetables, even a smoothie that you could pick your own fruits at. We're not going to be offering any convenience, groceries, tobacco, alcohol, or New York State lottery. Just what's on the menu. Just wanted to clarify that. That was the main thing for me. The hours of operation will be between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. just so we're able to serve, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then that being said, with the expectations of our business and the full-size menu and the hours of operation, I think that we'll definitely be able to provide at least 10 jobs to the community. And one of the main things for us is that we wanted to make our business as welcoming as possible. And to achieve that, we feel like the way we'll set up the new exterior, interior, the landscaping, proper lighting, and obviously great food and a well-run business. That's going to be the best way to, for us to make it as welcoming as possible. We both share the same passion of bringing something that looks great and obviously great quality food to the city of Syracuse. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
If this were to be approved, how long might it take you to complete the renovations and be ready to open?
I would say
Probably 30, 45 days.
yeah, I would say 30 to 45 days.
Oh, so like this summertime even?
Yeah, I'm hoping. I would love to be open before summertime.
A lot of
You
work
don't have
ahead.
to have any sandwiches really right now, do you?
Have you taken a look at the menu? It's a good
It's
menu.
got a look.
Yeah.
This is good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Other individuals who might want to speak in favor of the application, please come forward to do so. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come to the podium. It doesn't look like we have any additional speakers, so we can close this public hearing.
Can I
and
just
enter-
I need to ask clarification.
Oh,
2 clarifications.
Quick clarification on the dumpster. It is on the drawings that the dumpster will be fenced. So that issue is not an issue.
good. I'm glad to hear the confirmation.
3 clarifications then. Okay, so the hours of operation in your application state something different than what you just stated. So we need to put that in the resolution. So could you state again what your hours will be and what days of the week?
So Monday through Friday will be open, or Monday through Thursday will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay.
Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday, we'll be open from it's actually 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturday too, and then Sunday we'll be open from 12 to 6.
Okay. One more thing. Oh, the fence of the dumpster, will it be solid or what kind of fence will it be?
The proposed siding is a vertical metal siding, and the fence itself will be a continuation of the metal siding, so it'll blend in with the building and the new facade. So it's a vertical metal panel siding.
Okay, and the last thing is Neil Burke, the transportation planner, had made one additional comment about the turning movements as you pull in. Did you see those? Just because you have, I think you have cars at an angle, and he was concerned you were backing out in the right of way.
If you look at the revised plan, the loading area for the handicapped is sitting to the right of the handicap space, so he was concerned that backing out of the handicap space, you would be going into the, over the right-of-way line. Just by flipping those two things, putting the loading space on the left and the handicapped on the right, that then the back out is onto the thing. So just change the drawing there to flip those two
And
things,
that's
it'll take care of it.
the one that we received on April.
Last week, Wednesday.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. I'm done.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Now we'll close the hearing, and we will entertain a motion for action on the special permit.
Seven. Parking spaces, and proposing 4, sorry.
19. 19 tonight. 19.
19 spaces. Wait. It's getting late. Also granting the waiver for the curb cut. Granting the waiver of, did we discuss the sign size?
Oh.
I don't have any questions.
Any waiver of the sign requirement. And I think now they said they're making accommodations on the landscape.
They won't.
Discussed on the record, granting the waiver with their agreement with staff on the setback and on the waiver of tree lines, street line, tree area requirement. Did we get them all? And the 30 setback requirement, we're also granting that waiver.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The special permit for the restaurant SP-22-07 is approved. Thank you and good luck. That concludes our public hearings for tonight, but not our business. And we move into new business items. Would you please introduce our first new business item?
Yes. The first new business item is PR 1704M1. This is a modification of the floor plans and facade, building footprint, as well as a time extension request. This would be the 5th request, and this is a project site review for demolition and new construction at 728 East Genesee Street and 728 East EGSU LLC is the owner and applicant, and the property lies within a business class A zoning district.
Thank you. You gentlemen are here for that project, yes?
Yes, I'll begin. Andrew Schuster, 203 Wellesley Road, Syracuse, New York. I'm the architect for the owner. I wanted to start by reintroducing the project in some ways. We were here last summer to ask for an extension while the current owner looked for a new equity partner in order to complete the project. In the process of that, they're in the process of selling the project to a new owner who previously was going to be their equity partner, and who would like to take it on entirely themselves. The project is intended to continue to be 191 units of market rate housing on Genesee Street. The project intends to continue to restore the church as a future retail establishment. The project intends to continue to be a 11-story with a penthouse multifamily building with parking as a ground floor podium. To start, I'd like to introduce, Ross, did you want to say anything, or do you want to? Sure. So I'd like to just introduce the current owner and the new owner so they can speak to you about what their plans are for the project.
Just before you speak, if you'd give your name for the record so that we have that.
Sure, Ross Levine. Nice to see you all again. Very, very quickly, as has been the case from day one, we were committed to trying to find a way to make a project viable that maintained what I still believe to be is an incredible building. As we said last year, finding a partner that shared that vision and was willing to embark on that reality was not easy, because there is a much easier path. The path is, demo the building. Everybody we spoke to took that approach, and everybody that took that approach, we had no interest in talking to. We're here asking for an extension. We've had a great relationship with the people that you're going to meet right after I speak. They shared our vision. They bought into the unit count. They bought into the size of the building as we had previously submitted. In fact, the request is for a slightly smaller building in mass, which I can't see as being a negative. They have increased the number of parking spots on site, which, if we remember back to the hearings 4 years ago plus, was a major consideration. So all we are doing here today is asking that you approve a building with the same number of units, with an increased parking count, slightly smaller, so that the project, which has, the message was well received last year, is this project going to go? This project is ready to go. So we just come here tonight to ask for these modifications and this extension, and bring in a Class A partner that's going to be a great asset to the city of Syracuse. That's it. And thank you for your time, and it's a pleasure to see you all again. Thank you.
Next.
Hey there. My name's Andy Savoy. I'm with CA Ventures. It's a company based out of Chicago. We're at 130 East Randolph in Chicago, Illinois. So CA Ventures started in 2004, and they've grown into be a national real estate developer, developing all kinds of product types, market rate, senior, industrial, medical office buildings, and we've done projects in over 100 markets and in three countries. And so we are under contract to purchase 728 East Genesee, and we learned of that opportunity last year and just went under contract in February of this year. And one of the things we found very attractive about that opportunity was that it was fully entitled and ready to go. And we have an investor that needs to deploy capital by the end of this year. And so our intent would be to submit for permit likely by the end of May, and hope to have a permit by September, and start construction sometime in October or early November. And so their interest in this project is kind of predicated on being able to start this year, and given our kind of recent involvement and their need to act quickly, we're here to ask for an extension to the previously approved site plan approval for this project. And additionally and separately, we'd like to ask for, we'd like to show you a few of the proposed modifications that we would have to the previously approved plan that we believe to be consistent with the intent of the initial approval and even better than the initial approval. And so, as Andrew Schuster mentioned, the unit count is not changing, the parking count's not changing, the building height's not changing, all of that's the same, and all the changes are, in my opinion, kind of within the original intent of the approval. And so I think with that, you can, I guess, speak to the specific changes we're talking about.
So I thought there was a change in parking for a higher count, yes or no?
That's true.
He's holding back on you.
The available space for parking is about the same. The initial project was approved for using stackers, and we actually have additional space so that we can use more stackers to get more parking on site. We're not currently requesting an increase in the available parking, but we may if we are confident that it's necessary. But I wanted, so you guys have the drawings we submitted, and I'm just putting up a couple of diagrams really to explain what we're asking for.
And
Andrew,
if you
can you
wish
just,
to do so, you should be able to disengage the microphone if you want to come around.
Oh.
And
Or you can just turn it, you might be able to just turn it. There you go.
Is that better?
That's fine, and you can pull that out if you need to. Can you just go over what you just said? So if you use more stackers, that means you'll have more parking spots.
Correct.
Okay.
We're some of these spaces may be used for loading, depending on how we go about using the building. So we don't want to ask for an increase at the moment, but the capacity may be there. So The project, when we first submitted, had an entrance behind the existing church building, the Church First Christ Scientist, with a long pedestrian thoroughfare to the street, and then a retail use at the Genesee Street side. So what we are looking to do is co-locate the entrance and the retail at the front of the building. So the tenant lobby will actually be on the second floor, but a staircase through that retail area will be the primary public entrance to the building. This is not an uncommon thing to have some mixed use in these lobbies. It wakes them up, livens them up. A tenant is not currently identified, but we actually think that it may make that space more viable than just a random 1,000 square foot storefront. So that is the first change that we're asking to modify. The second change is because we are using a unit mix that's a little bit tighter. So it's still 191 units. It's approximately the exact same mix of unit types, but we've made the floor plate a little bit more efficient. And so we're looking for, on the 2nd through 11th floors, to set the building back an additional 5 feet alongside the church, to give it a little bit more space, give it a little bit more light to the apartments. The building mass at Genesee Street, Genesee Street, is not going to change at all. And this is really just to make sure there's better light and air in these apartments. Another modification that we're looking for is, in order to combine that residential lobby with that front retail, we lost a unit on that floor, and we'd like to put that unit back where the amenity space was in the original plan. And so we'd like to push that amenity space onto the occupied roof. The occupied roof is already there. We don't anticipate that this amenity space is going to be something that you can particularly see from the street. And it's really just a matter of making that unit mix continue to work. And then the other thing that we are looking to modify, which I think we're going to have to come back for some clarification on this, is there is currently a large utility mechanical penthouse on the roof, and we may be using a different mechanical system that would allow us to use a much smaller rooftop penthouse. We are looking to relocate some of the interior stairs in order to jockey the unit mix around. In terms of the site plan, the only change to the site plan that we're requesting is the approved site plan. This lobby kind of pumps out into the courtyard space, and we're looking to make this more of a back of house space. Hutchings has been very forcefully requesting that we do not have any resident use on Cedar Street, so putting the lobby there is very awkward. So that would become more regularized and would become the back of house mechanical utility space for the building. We'd be co-locating that retail and main entrance. We're not looking for any other change to the site plan other than just squaring that off like we originally proposed when we first came to you. That's the full extent of the modifications.
Thank you. Any questions about these changes?
No questions, but I wish they had been here when the university issue was being debated. As mentioned, the whole communication with the neighbor, it's a proper thing. I just wish you'd been here and spoken before that presentation.
I think the only concern I have, and we discussed this the last time you were all here, and that is the constant extensions on some of these projects that we look at. And that I remember I didn't write the policy statements that I was going to do, but for us to consider. But generally, we've been operating on the idea that 5 years after any of our approvals, conditions on the ground may have changed, and it is likely in the community's best interest that we not grant extensions after that, and that folks maybe have to start the process again because they need to take other things into consideration. So you're kind of at that line.
Which is why we came to you now and not at the end of the extension.
Like that.
And we're looking to have a mobilized construction site by the end of the year.
And I think that's exciting. If you all are going to keep to that schedule, that would be really exciting. So, thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Other questions or even comments on the changes proposed?
All set, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Is there a motion for action on the proposed modifications to the floor plans and facade and the time extension?
Move to approve. I don't need to do a negative declaration again, do I? So move to approve, noting again the commission's concern that this likely could be the last extension granted, given the time frame.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So the floor plan changes and time extension are approved. We've got another year. Good luck.
Good luck.
Hope to see things moving soon. Thanks for bringing us up to date.
And thanks for your patience.
Yeah.
Long meeting tonight.
And we're not finished. We have additional new business items.
Yeah, so the next
Or
new
Jennifer.
business item is Z2849. This is a project plan review. It should have an M after it, I think. This is to modify floor plans and facade. Okay. All right. No M, no initial project plan review. Okay. The applicant is requesting to modify the floor plan of an existing parking garage to construct a space for telecommunications equipment on property 914, 918 Irving Avenue. And this includes closing off a portion of the first level of the parking garage and infilling it with some exterior elevations of IFAS and constructing 5 individual areas for telecommunications equipment for use. It says by the host and up to 4 carriers. That could probably use some clarification. I know Jennifer is here this evening from the university. And the the proposal will result in the loss of approximately 22 off-street parking spaces. Commission may also wish to ask clarification on that. And that is all information that we have. So.
Do you want to add to that summary? And
I think you should make it worth your while to go through all of this.
good 1-hour presentation will do us all good.
It's good to be here and hear things live, actually. Jennifer Bybee with Syracuse University, 1320 Janesville Avenue in Syracuse. And thank you for having our item on the agenda tonight. The reason why this is not a modification, to clarify, because I went through the same question myself, is because when the building was built, this was not PID zoning. So it hadn't actually, so it's a different situation now. Heather explained the project beautifully, as always. The issue is essentially to provide better telecommunications so that there will be better network availability in the area of campus, including to the stadium. And so my understanding is that it will be the typical providers that one would see: Verizon, AT&T, etc. And we will make every effort to have the new exterior look the same as the existing when we enclose that space. This was essentially an urban design decision because it is a sizable amount of square footage. And so we thought that it made sense to use an existing structure to basically screen it and shield it, because it could be quite large if it were put in, say, a parking lot, and then would have to be screened, and that would be a whole other issue. I think that's really all. As you saw, we added a little bit after the initial submittal, some additional mechanical equipment that's quite small, but it's on the southern exterior of the building, and we will screen that as well. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
What happens to the spaces that got displaced by the equipment? Where
So
do
they were
end up?
not actually assigned as part of, say, a zoning approval for any building. They were just kind of like basically unassigned, part of the university pool, used for different things within that parking garage. People who park their work, say, in Deneen Hall, which is adjacent, or in any of the other surrounding university buildings. It's also a public use lot for, say, prospective students who want to visit the law school. And it's also used as swing space for, say, if there's a construction job and the construction workers who will come to that area of campus to do the work, then they're allowed to park there. So it's basically just unassigned, and the entire facility isn't regularly subscribed. So the loss won't be felt.
Not regular demand for those spaces
Right.
on an ongoing basis?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's leeway.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Other questions?
Thank you.
Well, so much for the hour-long presentation. Nonetheless, is there a motion for action on this project plan review and the modification of the floor plans?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? And so Z-2849 is approved.
The next new business item is 3S2206. This is a 3-mile limit subdivision review in the town of DeWitt. Spirit and Sanzone Realty subdivision is the name, and it's just to combine 2 properties into one new lot at 6495 Fly Road. William Sanzone, Spirit and Sanzone Realty Company, Inc. is the owner, and Lynn Kozak Nelson Associates Architectural Engineering is the applicant.
Okay, thank you. And the city engineer has signed off.
Yes.
Is there a motion for action?
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So the first 3-mile limit in the town of DeWitt is approved. We have a second one this evening, also in DeWitt.
3S2207, the 3-mile limit subdivision review in the town of DeWitt. This is for Lesser JD Middle School. And this is to realign 2 properties into 2 new lots at 6280 and 6300 Randall Road. Charles and Margaret Lesser and the Jamesville DeWitt Central School District are the owners and applicants.
Again, the city engineer's office has signed off on this.
Yes.
Action?
Move approval. Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? The second 3-mile limit in the town of DeWitt, 3S-2207, is also approved. Do we have other business this evening before we move to the authorizations?
No.
I heard a weak plea for no. Okay, that is, so we have for next time 8 new applications plus 3 held over from this evening. So it looks like they'll give us a total of 11 for the 16th of May. Is there a motion to authorize those hearings?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All
That'll be 11, so could we be really careful about adding too many more to that list if we don't have to?
Oh, there'll be no more hearings for sure. Oh, you mean like new business? I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we will.
Yeah, so if we could keep it to just what we've just approved and not sneak in those people who bother you about last-minute things.
Yes.
That would be helpful.
Instead of just a couple of the held over,
Okay.
have extended discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Comment about not adding to the agenda beyond what we have talked about tonight. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So we have 8 new, 3 carryover for the 16th. And if there's nothing else, then is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We are done. We will return on the 16th of May with a full agenda.
So I'm picking up a child, but I'm only tend to be here at 6, or as close to 6 as possible. And I may be wearing very casual clothes. Just warning you now.